Well, Reject Nation. I was out of town this weekend, and never ever in my entire time have I ever gotten so many requests to check out a Cosmic Wonder video. This came out a few days ago. It won't stop. It won't stop. People constantly keep telling me, this is not a joke. There's no hyperbole here. There's nothing I'm feigning. Spider-Man No Way Home full movie description leaked. This is highly requested. So Warren, I know you're at least peeking at this video, and yeah, bud, you pulled this off. He's been up in his editing game, putting a lot of work in. He was actually texting me the day he was editing this, going like, 60-minute video is a lot to edit right now. I'm glad to see how well it's taken off, and I have literally never seen so many people be like, this sounds legit, you gotta check it out. So many comments. Yeah, let's see what all the buzz is about.
What's going on, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, and today we have a Spider-Man plot leak that a lot of people have sent me, and it is the most detailed plot leak that I have ever seen since doing YouTube. Now, this caught my attention because, as I mentioned a few videos ago, a couple of insiders have told me about a few plot details that are confirmed to be true coming up in Spider-Man No Way Home. I did a video on what those are, I shared them with you, and you can find those actually in this plot leak. But in this plot leak sense, they're actually tied into the story. Now, of course, with all plot leaks, we take them with a grain of salt, but like I just said, there are some points in this plot leak that I know are confirmed to be true. Now, this was posted online, apparently by somebody who works at Marvel Studios. They claim that they haven't actually seen the movie, but they have read the script. And they say they posted this because
they have lost their job.
Of waiting, and I think we're all tired of waiting. And if that is true, that kind of indicates that it's Sony's fault to blame for us not getting the trailer yet, which I kind of think everybody figured anyways. So like I said, it's insanely detailed, it's incredibly long, so we're just gonna dive into it. It sounds really awesome.
Tired of waiting.
Not
what a weird thing. Kevin Feige's tired of waiting.
In there that I can confirm. And if you like plot leaks and keeping up to date with the MCU, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. Alright, this is divided into 3 acts, and I'm just gonna read it word for word as it is.
It is like a script.
I'll talk about it. The first scene takes place in an abandoned building somewhere in New York at night. A group of teenagers is exploring this abandoned building for a live stream they're doing. They talk about how the place is supposedly haunted. They eventually encounter a mysterious figure stumbling out of the darkness, clad in green armor, but injured. The teenagers are scared, but they attempt to mock the figure, but they run as soon as the figure starts walking towards them. The figure is none other than Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, wearing his armor from the 2002 Spider-Man movie, but without the helmet. An extended version of the breaking news report from the ending of Far From Home plays over the Marvel Studios logo. Then we see a montage of screens broadcasting the same video we saw at the ending of Far From Home when Mysterio exposes Peter Parker as Spider-Man and, of course, J.K. Simmons' new version of J. Jonah Jameson. Spider-Man is holding his head in panic, just as he was at the end of Far From Home. He looks back at MJ and then back at the screen. We then see the reactions of various people. We see Flash Thompson drop a snack from his mouth as he's watching, surprised at the fact that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Ned is with his mother, just as shocked. Spider-Man swings away as people look at him, telling MJ to meet him back at Queens. Aunt May frantically calls him about what's happening. Spidey tells her that he'll be home soon and that they should move away as he fears there might be a mob that will attack their home. Peter arrives at their apartment building in Queens and they talk about what to do, calling Happy. Obviously, Aunt May, Ned, and MJ know that Peter is innocent. They also attempt to contact Nick Fury, but he doesn't answer because he's in space. Then there's a joke about Nick ghosting Peter back for not answering his calls in Far From Home. Peter tells Aunt May that they may have time to figure things out since Peter Parker was just a normal teenager, so not many people will know where he lives anyway. But then they just suddenly hear a bunch of people gathered outside yelling at them, including Brad Davis and a few other students from Peter's school who probably led the mob to his home. Happy attempts to pick Peter and May up from their apartment, but the people in front of the apartment building are getting in his way. Peter sees Happy outside the window, gesturing for them to get back down. Peter quickly changes to his civilian outfit, goes back down with May, and confronts the mob, pretending to not know what the hell is happening. Brad Davis calls him out that he should know what's happening since his face was just broadcast all over the world. Happy comes out of his car and escorts them to the car. Inside the car, they discuss what to do. Happy suggests hiring a lawyer so they can settle this legally as there's really nothing else they can do at this point. May says she might know someone. She pulls out her phone and starts contacting a lawyer. We cut to a courthouse. Peter is on trial. The lawyer is none other than Matt Murdock, played by Charlie Cox. The witness is one of Mysterio's accomplices. The court battle gets heated as the accomplice presents new evidence showing a more convincing footage of Peter killing Mysterio that was not shown to the public. It's a video that was edited to make it look like Peter shot Mysterio at point blank. They also mentioned that the video has been examined for any sign of fakery, but none was found. Matt attempts to speak back, but he was cut off by the judge and branded guilty. Matt tells Peter that he'll find a way to fix this because he knows that Peter is innocent, but also subtly implies that he knows he's also Spider-Man. This is the last that we see of Matt Murdock. Peter is arrested and he tells Aunt May that he has no choice but to serve a sentence and assures her that he'll be fine. We see a shot of Peter in a police car looking out to the crowd as people yell, "Spider-Man is a murderer." Peter spends a day in prison being bullied by other inmates, but he wouldn't fight back. In his cell, a tiny portal opens in front of him, and a piece of paper comes out of it. The paper reads, 177A Bleecker Street. Hurry. And we've definitely seen that before. But Peter escapes through the barred window by breaking the bars and crawling out.
Okay, so far, I'm liking it. I haven't gone into full believable territory yet. I'm not gonna say I believe it just yet. Obviously, we're so early in. Idea of kicking off here with Green Goblin is a cool tease for what's to come, that he's already there. Right? Like he's already transported over there. It's taking place after multiverse events of Loki and whatnot. For him to really be like, it's called No Way Home, and to have this real fugitive style to it where he has to break out of jail, go to Bleecker Street, go to see Doctor Strange. That sounds cool. But I don't know. I'm really hesitant. I'm really cautious on this one.
Absolutely.
I'm really cautious, considering how descriptive it is, and the thing that's throwing me off, honestly, is just the first thing of someone working at Marvel saying, "I'm tired of waiting." I'm like, what individual would be there doing that? That's the most suspicious thing I've heard. Not even the plot leak. It's just that. That's
Who
the most
with
suspicious.
access, with enough clout and status at Marvel to have access to information like this would be also in a position to be like, ugh, I just don't want to wait. I'll jeopardize my entire well-being and my life.
That's what I mean. That's the most suspicious part to me about it. And because it's so detailed, it's easy to believe it.
Ned and MJ are at May's house to accompany her so that she wouldn't be lonely. Peter comes in through the window. May, Ned, and MJ are surprised and happy that Peter escaped, but also concerned as that would ruin his reputation even further. Peter tells them that Doctor Strange is calling for him and he'll be going there. Ned and MJ ask to go with him. He disagrees, but eventually they all go together. They arrive and look around at the place, and they look up to see Doctor Strange dramatically floating down the stairs. And this is the picture that was officially released where Tom, Zendaya, and Jacob are looking up. He leads them to a room with an orb in the middle, with vein-like trails all over the area. He explains that the flow of time has somehow been disturbed and that many realities are starting to bleed into each other. And obviously with Loki, we know this to be true. Strange tells Peter that two timelines are merging into their own, but with the orb that he apparently dug up from somewhere, it has the ability to slow down the merging process. Peter asks Strange why he called on him, and not somebody else, and Strange says that he is somehow the center of the current problem he's dealing with, a problem that's part of an even bigger problem. Strange says that he can't leave the sanctum because he has to keep reality stable, and this is very difficult now as all the Infinity Stones have been destroyed, so he has to rely on pure magic. It is from here that Strange starts to warn Peter about the villains, and he reveals that the villains are taken from various points of the timeline of the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield movies as timelines. To make sure that Peter is up for the task, Strange teleports Peter's Iron Spider suit to the sanctum and combines it with magic, turning it into an integrated suit. He tells Peter that it'll allow him to use magic that will allow him to put the villains in stasis and put them back into the sanctum so Strange can bring them back to their respective universes and timelines.
So it's kind of like Far From Home in the sense of how it starts off and there's already villains there. Like, yes, the elementals are all fake, they're all illusions. Let's take out the whole thing with illusion, make it actual physical reality, and that's kind of the setup that's happening here.
Yeah.
According to this plot leak.
Trouble's already afoot.
That like Goblin's here, the other villains are already here, and
Multiverse is bleeding together.
The way how Spidey was recruited to help take care of the problem, it sounds like a repeat plot beat of Far From Home. That's just like the vibe I'm picking up on right now.
And Peter actually ends up capturing the villains and bringing them back to the sanctum. But Peter was injured fighting Doc Ock. While recovering, Peter talks to Sandman and learns that back in his reality, his daughter Penny is sick and that he's only been doing everything he can to to save her.
Wait a minute. Peter got them? Here's something I'm not really liking about what I'm hearing. Peter getting a special suit, having some magic equipped with it based off the set of circumstances of the stakes. Sure, that makes sense to me. But it seems so early on into Act 2, and then all these villains are going to come in at the beginning of Act 2, and then Peter, just using some newly learned magic with his suit, is able to take all the villains on, contain them. It seems like, okay, that's really lucky on Peter's end, and B, it undercuts the stakes of the villains.
Yeah,
if you were to do that so early on,
yeah.
which is making me have a hard time believing it.
Because then it's also like, how do they then get back out that one leak about like, Peter just like gets sympathetic and decides to let them out. If this is true. I'm like, but you just spent all this time and effort like catching them, and if you just got mangled up a bit by Doc Ock. Like,
but that might not be in this leak that we're talking about here.
That's fair.
You're bringing another leak into here.
There are just so many leaks. They're all true.
They're not all leaks, no trailers. I'm just saying, from a storytelling point of view, that's having me a hard. A, I'm like, if that actually happens, I feel like that kind of undercuts the weight of the situation. And B, it's making me have a harder time actually wrapping my head around it, because I feel like that's way too. If you're supposed to build these villains up, right? Theoretically,
it seems
and then increase the stakes of how hard it is to take them on.
Yeah.
So to take them out so early on, at least contain them. I don't know. It makes it less exciting to me.
Yeah. You could make an entire movie out of containing them the first time. You know?
Peter recognizes the name and asks him if her last name is Marco, to which he says yes. Peter tells him that he knows a girl named Penny Marco in his school who was happy and was the survivor of sickness, and that her father Flint died during a bank robbery in an attempt to get money to save her. He reveals that his name is also Flint and sheds a tear. Peter then asks him what Peter in his world is like, and he tells him that he only fought him once inside an armored vehicle.
Wait a minute, okay, hold on a second. Only fought him once at an armored vehicle is not factual, so is the idea that Sandman is pulled out early on,
maybe
like halfway through Spider-Man 3? So because he fought him again in the finale.
Exactly, and it's not at the moment just before being vanquished or whatever then, you know.
With this leak, it's saying that Sandman did not have his whole character arc.
Yes, apparently. Yeah. Apparently so.
May ends up at the sanctum as well, and Ned, MJ, Peter, and her spend the night there. Suddenly, they hear an explosion where the villains are imprisoned. Peter rushes back to where the villains are and found that most of them have escaped except for Sandman, who looks at him and says sorry before disappearing. Strange was caught off guard and injured by the explosion and says that the event has worsened the reality state. Strange tells Peter not to go after them while injured, but of course Peter puts on the integrated suit and he goes and leaves. He ends up fighting them all, except for Sandman, who is really trying his best not to hurt him. But the other villains try and kill him. Spider-Man ends up crashing into a rooftop, completely battered more than he ever was before. Then a figure in green armor and a purple hoodie approaches him. He takes off his hood, revealing him to be Norman Osborn of the Sam Raimi universe. And here's where things actually start to get pretty intense. We find out that he was taken from the Sam Raimi universe right before the glider ran into him and killed him, but he was actually sent to the past of the MCU, the main sacred timeline. From there, he actually murdered the current Norman Osborn, preventing Oscorp from existing in the MCU. Instead of turning Oscorp into a big name, he instead waited for the right time to strike. At first, he thought the MCU didn't have a Spider-Man, but later found out about his existence because of the events of Homecoming and Far From Home. Norman prepares to kill him as he has learned his lesson not to let Spider-Man live and get in his way. But right before he goes to kill him, Spider-Man is saved by none other than Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. He grabs him and takes him back to the Sanctum. And apparently that's the end of Act 1, and now we go into Act 2.
That's Act 1.
I don't believe this.
That's like, you're way into like a whole movie.
The second you said that's the end of Act 1, I was like,
this is all supposed to happen.
Nope, don't buy it.
Like a half hour.
Nope, don't buy it.
This is way. How long is any scene gonna get to be?
Act 1 is at most 30 minutes. There's no way. Unless this movie is like 3 hours, 3.5. Maybe this will be the first 3-hour Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
But still, like that is so much to do. I thought we were halfway through Act 2.
That's like a whole movie. Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like you've had all the villains captured and then they all escape. He has time to have an exchange with Sandman.
Yeah.
Sandman, sorry, but then Andrew Garfield's here.
I'm enjoying parts of it. I like the idea of how Norman Osborn is actually, Willem Dafoe has been here for a while, living. I don't know what took him so long to finally emerge.
Well, and you know, if you kill your Oscorp legacy, it's gonna be hard to get money in a new universe.
But there are things about it that are not lining up quite right to me, because the events of Loki, the multiverse, branching off and all that. They're saying he's been here here for a while. So like the timeline of the MCU, the sacred timeline that we as audience members are invested in, has been rewritten slightly to where this Norman Osborn has been living in the sacred timeline.
Yes.
That's what's being said here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what took him so long.
In addition to whatever other Norman we never see because he killed him.
Just waiting for the right time to emerge. Now there's a Spider-Man, I should emerge.
And be the savior.
There's a weird video for us to do because some people requested it, and we're honest if we believe a leak or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, I think everyone wants us to believe this. I'm like,
Everyone
there's just a lot of
wants the
things I'm not
movie.
buying about it.
Everyone wants the movie, but don't let that persuade you on a bad idea.
I don't know. When we get a trailer, we'll see if any of this lines up.
Back at the Sanctum, Ned, MJ, and Aunt May are surprised to see another Spider-Man carrying Peter. We find out that Andrew Spider-Man has actually been in the MCU for a few months, and Doctor Strange says that he used a forgotten spell that's able to pull people from other universes into the MCU. While the Breach can do this as well by random, his spell allows him to specifically choose people to bring over, and he chose to bring over Andrew Spider-Man for help. Meanwhile, the Sinister Six have formed and they now have a base. Sandman wants to actually go back to his universe, but the others state that they die in their own universes and no longer have a purpose there. They're going to attack the Sanctum, kill Strange, both Spider-Man, and take the orb. However, Strange finds this out as he was spying on them via astral projection. Back at the Sanctum, the group asks Andrew Spider-Man a bunch of questions. Ned states that they don't look anything alike, but of course we know that they don't have to because of the Loki series. The two of them start to bond and Peter tells the other Peter how he went to space. But then mid-conversation they are interrupted by Strange returning to the Sanctum, telling them that they need to prepare for an attack. Strange says that'll help as much as he can, but he can't give Spider-Man any more of his magic. From here, Peter calls Happy, telling him that they need better suits. Happy heads over to the Sanctum, but meanwhile, Spider-Man's reputation is further damaged after his escape from prison. And in school, Flash is actually the one being bullied for supporting Spider-Man. Happy gets to the Sanctum, and
mighty
both
have
Spider-Man
fallen.
get new suits. Tom Holland Spider-Man rocking the black and gold one that we've seen.
I love the idea of just them cutting back to the high school red. Check out what's going on. Just Flash Thompson. How's Flash doing?
All our favorite characters from school. See how the one funny teacher's doing? All those guys. Martin Starr.
Oh, gosh. And Happy, I need a better suit now.
MJ and Peter have a moment and they share a kiss. We then cut to New York City at sunset. We see a young woman being mugged by a thug played by Harry Holland, Tom Holland's brother. But the thug is webbed up by Toby Maguire Spider-Man. Toby asks if she's okay and then takes a break at a rooftop nearby. He takes off his mask and then he gets a call from Kirsten Dunst's MJ. It cuts to their living room where she is caring for their daughter named May Parker. They start talking about Toby's decision of retiring as Spider-Man as other heroes are now appearing in his world. Toby arrives home, plays with his daughter, and then talks with MJ about how he needs to be there more for his daughter.
I'm so confused. Are we in our timeline right now?
think-
Or do we hop over to the Raimi-verse? Because there's just saying that Toby's just like, I'm checking up on my wife and daughter.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
wait, so are you guys were put over here too and you just settled in and now you're just deciding to come out?
That's the only way it would make sense to me, and I guess maybe the Harry Holland, it just exists in that universe and is there to confuse us or something?
Kind of sound like how in Civil War, where you're like close to the finale when they just cut to Peter Parker in Queens.
Yeah.
And then Iron Man's visiting him, so you're like kind of cutting away from the main story to go introduce this other Spider-Man character.
Yeah.
But it's not on this earth.
Yeah, I mean, if Tobey Maguire Spider-Man shows up, then yeah, it has to be in the Sam Raimi verse.
Okay, so we're cutting to that verse. All right.
But my question becomes, we've seen set photos of Harry Holland and Tom Holland in the suit.
Yes.
So I don't
Just like the photo that was showed here.
yeah, just like literally
Yeah.
that one. That's what jogged my memory.
Yeah, and that's another point to just. I don't mean to just. We didn't want to come here.
Well, that's
and
the
just
thing.
start pointing out things that are like make us not believe it.
It's funny. I think that when the leaks are smaller, it's almost a bit more like, oh yeah, it's just one little detail, so it could be plausible. Whereas when you hear them all together, it at least instills within me a more of a drive to be very critical and analytical and like really zero in on.
Well, there was one leak we heard that we really believed, and there's been a couple that we haven't. And
Yeah.
this is kind of falling into that category for all the reasons we're saying.
He promises to take it easy now, and we also see a newspaper that seemingly implies that the events of the canceled Spider-Man 4 movie actually happened in the universe. And now on to the final
That
attack.
would be cool.
Norman Osborn
They should do
approaches
that.
the
Yes.
entrance of the Sanctum at midnight,
Marvel.
knowing that Strange is
Listen up.
expecting him. He talks about how this new world is his chance to be bigger than he was in his other universe. The Sinister Six start attacking the Sanctum, but it is seemingly empty. Then Tom Holland's Peter Parker jumps out of a dark spot and kicks Electro in the head. Then the two Spider-Men start to fight the Sinister Six. Andrew has a rematch against the Lizard, but Doctor Strange ends up getting knocked unconscious due to him being weakened from trying to bind reality from breaking. This is a huge fight, and it ends up with both the Spider-Men injured, but they were able to subdue Lizard, Scorpion, Vulture, and Doc Ock. Tom attempts to capture Norman, but Norman catches him off guard and stabs him with a blade through the shoulder. However, Sandman betrays Norman and attacks him. Sandman is then killed after Norman detonated what seems to be a pumpkin bomb filled with fluid. As it turned out, Norman had a contingency plan in case the other villains tried to betray him. Tom tries to attack him again, but then Norman summons a new glider. Both the Spider-Man put up a fight, but ultimately they are no match against him. With both Spider-Man knocked down and almost knocked down for good, MJ attacks Norman Osborn with a metal pipe.
What exactly is making this Green Goblin so superior?
I'm not sure, because again, if
two Spider-Men can't take him on.
Because especially if he's been living in our world and he doesn't have any Oscorp-style resources, like he must be just like a vagrant.
That's what I mean. I'm not saying it as like a criticism to add disbelief. I'm saying that like I'm lost a bit on how he's so strong.
Unless he's just done that this whole time. He's just like strength training and then martial arts training and nothing else.
But it doesn't hurt him, and he turns to her, grabs her by the neck, and throws her across the room. Tom screams,
Ouch.
but is knocked down by Norman with one punch. Norman then goes to the room where Strange's body is, and the two of them have a conversation, and Norman tells Strange that he spent too much time on trying to maintain reality that has been severely weakened. Norman goes for the kill, but Strange lets go of the orb and fights Norman, but not before doing a brief spell on the orb that makes it glow red briefly. Norman is no match against Strange, but Electro then appears and takes the orb while Strange is distracted. Strange attempts to cast a portal in front of Electro as he escapes, but Norman grabs Strange and throws him against a wall. When Strange gets back up, Norman and Electro have disappeared. Tom cradles MJ, who is severely bleeding, mirroring the scene where Andrew lost Gwen in The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Suggesting MJ's gonna die?
Shock, and MJ dies. Ned and May counsel Tom, but Strange tells them that they've escaped with the orb. However, Strange has brought in one last backup, even though it isn't much. Andrew Spider-Man tells Peter how he lost Gwen in his own universe. Then Peter shares how he lost Tony Stark. They then talk about how being Spider-Man will always lead to suffering, but they must persevere.
While the stakes of that would be very unexpected, I have to say, after the death of MJ, I lost Gwen. I lost Tony.
And now MJ as well.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to kill off freaking Zendaya. I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah, and what has she gotten to do across this movie except, like, you know, be happy, except worried that Peter got out of jail, have a kiss with him at one point after showing up at the sanctum, and now dying.
I like the idea of Andrew Garfield, if his Gwen is dead, of having ability for Tom Holland to confide in him. Maybe you get some dialogue that presents some type of catharsis for Andrew Garfield, since she died in Amazing Spider-Man 2, then the movie ended like 10 minutes later. To see what his growth is. I don't think they would. I don't believe they would be ballsy, and I would kind of be down for it just because of the move to do it. I'd be down for it. Yeah, so I'm not against it. I just don't buy that they actually would kill her off.
I don't buy the way it's presented here.
Back in the Raimi universe, Toby's Spider-Man is telling a speech to his daughter about how he'll think she'll grow up to be somebody wonderful. But then a portal opens up behind him, and Mary Jane also walks into the room. The final fight is against the Sinister Six and the three Spider-Man. The fight ends up with
goes and fights.
attempting to bring back
Duty calls, dear.
versions of the Sinister Six from other universes, but all three Spider-Man gang up on him. The other two Spider-Man attempt to hold back the Sinister Six, while Tom's Spider-Man attempts to use the orb to bring everybody back to their respective timelines. However, Norman Osborn has been tinkering with it and has damaged it because it's overloaded with energy, and using it risks destroying it. Portals start to appear in the sky. Buildings, cars, and even people start falling from them.
Whoa! That would be cool.
Go full Inception.
Respective timelines. Norman is put back in the last second before he's impaled
Where's
by
the
his
Statue of
glider.
Liberty
Luckily,
fight?
the orb didn't break, but it's heavily cracked. Peter then thinks about using the orb to bring MJ back to life.
Wait a minute, did I just hear that correctly? This is to say that They put Goblin back a second before he's impaled by the collider.
Yep.
Just like,
There's a blink, and then current Norman plops back in just in time to get impaled in the nad.
and then. It's a fun fan fiction is what this sounds like. There's some exciting stuff in here, but there's some really like questionable and goofy stuff. I can't see any context on how that is like going to be awesome.
Well, and I can't see that not kind of coming across as like a Nelson Muntz, like a ha, just like chopping in right at the right moment just to die.
Peter then thinks about using the orb to bring MJ back to life and get his secret identity back. Strange warns him not to do that, but Tom doesn't listen and he does it anyways. The orb then breaks and Peter looks around as something has happened, similar to when Thanos snapped his fingers. Doctor Strange asks, "What have you done?" and the screen fades to white. We cut to Tom in his bed. He greets Aunt May good morning and heads to school. At school, he sees Ned and they see MJ walk past the hallway, but she doesn't recognize them. She also seems more popular than before. Peter sees her and becomes sad seeing her, but Ned doesn't. He just says that she's out of their league. Then Tom walks out of a classroom after class and bumps into a blonde girl. They say sorry to each other and make eye contact. Cut to black while we hear Tom ask what the girl's name is and the movie ends. Now, as you can see, this is just absolutely insane. And it does actually sound like what the movie could be. But you'll have to let me know your thoughts on this. I definitely hate the ending. I don't like that MJ dies, and then all of a sudden the MCU is altered to where MJ doesn't know who Peter is. But let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Do you like this? Do you not like this? Do you think this could be real? Let me know your thoughts.
I think the same things that are like isolated stuff, like Toby and Andrew being in here and Doctor Strange, all that. Overall, I do not think this is how the movie's going to play out. I can't see it.
No.
I mean, I can see it, but it just sounds like a mess. It just sounds like a mess, and there are things here where I'm like, there's no way. Like, there's too much. There's too much in here.
Yeah, and with all that's been made out of the idea of including Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, like, it almost strikes me as strange that you would have, like, a side other movie in the middle of this movie about Tobey Maguire until the very end when he finally, like, joins the actual plot. Yeah, there are a lot of interesting concepts here, but as, like, pitching this as the entire movie, it seems just like way too much.
This seems like a fun fan fiction idea. Ultimately, you know, we've talked about that the whole reaction. It sounds too clustered. There would be no flow to it. Structurally, it just doesn't make sense to me in a lot of ways. It's right when you said that was Act 1, I was like, no, it's not real.
It's way too much.
Mark my words, I guarantee you this is not real. You could hold me accountable. I know a lot of people are really into this specific plot leak.
You now.
A lot of people are really loving this one, and this is the most requested. But I'm here to tell you that when you watch the first 30 minutes of the new Spider-Man No Way Home movie, you're gonna be like, that's not at all what was in the league. No. Yeah, I mean, you might see Daredevil, you might have court stuff. Sure. I'm just saying it's not going to play out like this.
Especially with the pacing, it's just like if you're cutting to so many of these multiversal, like, exploitable elements. As of this leak, it feels like a movie not very much concerned with the actual character journey of Peter.
No, not at all.
And MJ and Ned and, like, all the other characters that we've come to know. And so, yeah, like, with all these cool events and ideas, I'm like, where would we ever have time to have, like, a journey for any of them?
But you guys leave your thoughts down below. Subscribe, click that bell, hit that like button, and hey, we'll catch you guys soon. And thank you, Warren. I will say, Warren, your editing has just gone so much better.
Absolutely, dude.
Much more engaging video with the way your visuals are all done. Thank you for all the hard work you've done. And I'm not crapping on your leak. You're just reading someone else's leak. So,
thank you for bringing it to us.
But you made a good video out of it. So, thank you, buddy.